Thank you everyone for joining. Before we get started, let me introduce myself. I'm Cristian Agafitei. I'm a product designer and manager here at AE Studio. And for those of you who don't know, AE Studio is a product development, design, and data science agency with offices in Florianopolis, Brazil, and Venice, California. We work with a lot of different clients, ranging from startups to Fortune 50 companies, and build all kinds of cool stuff. As of lately, we've been working with blockchain, doing a lot of cool NFT projects, and we're actually looking for blockchain developers. So if you know any, please send them our way. We're also looking for really awesome and talented product designers and managers to work on those cool projects as well. And with that said, as far as myself, I've been doing design for probably as long as I can remember. My first experience with design was back when I was a kid, when I had basically the internet on a CD-ROM, and I was building my own websites, designing all kinds of cool things. And at some point, I was actually trading websites for grades. About 12 years ago, I started doing this professionally, and didn't really stop since. And I also had the awesome opportunity of joining AE. And while at AE, I came across a very cool, very interesting way of building products that utilizes a couple of concepts: product-focused development and product-focused design. So our topic for this session is going to be product-focused design, or how to design in an agile organization. So let's dive right in. Before we go and look at what product-focused design is, let's take a step back and see what agile development is meant to be. So the purpose of agile development is to get working software in front of people as soon as possible, and to get feedback as early and as often as possible, and then to iterate based on that feedback. There's a problem, however, right? If you're a developer, like, agile development might seem natural, right? It may seem the natural way to go. You're just focusing on getting things done. But if you're a designer, it may be a little bit frustrating, because agile, believe it or not, wasn't created for designers. It was the agile methodologies were created to be focused on developers, and they grew out of programmers' attempts to solve common pain points experienced during software development projects. In fact, the Agile Manifesto, which is still the main document when it comes to explaining what the agile principles are, did not include UX people or design people of any type, for that matter. It didn't account for time, resources, and research that these designers need to put in order to create excellent designs. So, of course, whenever we have to do design in an agile environment, or in an agile organization, there's going to be some friction between development and design. But there's a way to fix this. There's a way for agile to include design, and for design to fit into an agile process. As Henry Ford put it, if everyone is moving forward together, then success takes care of itself. So the idea is to make sure that everybody is focusing on the same thing, make sure everybody has the same measure of success, and that people are working towards the same goal. So when we're designing an agile organization, we want to make sure that we have a couple of things. We want to make sure that developers do not work on a feature that hasn't been clearly defined and or designed. I mean, this is something that happens quite often, because either product managers or different stakeholders or even developers may think they understand the requirements, but most of the times there's missing pieces, and when we fail to pay attention to design, this can create problems with mismanagement of expectations. It can create missed opportunities with stakeholders. We can basically, our clients, internal or external, can become very unhappy and irritated, and this can also lead to significant rework, and we know that everybody likes rework. Actually, they don't, and we definitely want to avoid this. So to solve this problem, we want to have designers working ahead of developers and make sure that the features are reviewed, discussed, and revised and clearly understood before developers start writing code. So here comes product focused design. Basically, product focused design is a process where we identify the simplest possible scope that will make an impact and design iteratively and incrementally towards that scope. And this applies to a project as a whole, but also to individual features, right? In product focused design and in product focused development, for that matter. And I'm going to do a little the intro into product focused development as well. The idea is to focusing on building what matters, what's going to make a difference, something that we can test, put in front of customers, and then iterate on and basically evolve it into the next version. Product focused design is about finding the best possible compromise between user, business, and market goals. We have to remember that we're not designing in a vacuum. There are other products out there in the world that may do similar things as our product. They may solve similar user needs, similar business needs, and we have to be very much aware of that. Of course, we shouldn't forget about our users, and because at the end of the day, if we don't have users, we don't have a product. And we should also not forget about the business, because usually the business, our clients, are the ones that are fueling our financing and fueling our work, and they're the visionaries behind what we're doing. And as I mentioned, I did mention product focused development. Product focused development and product focused design go hand in hand. And product focused development is basically the next step, right? After we've designed some things, we have to build them, right? And product focused development is basically the S in get S done. It's about like product focused design. It's about the product, the users, the business goals, and real world constraints. It's about doing what is best and not what's perfect, and it's about balance. It's about balance between not over engineering, not worrying about the beauty and the elegance of code. Not It's about balancing when it comes to design. It's about not focusing on trends, and it's about not making things complicated. It's also about not designing and developing things that don't work, and also about not creating low quality code, right? It's about finding that compromise between what works and what's the best possible thing that we can do. And both product focused design and product focused development have some underlying concepts, underlying principles that make them work. One of those is that we need to focus on the problem that we're trying to solve. We have to remember that we're always solving problems. We're not just designing pretty things, and we should definitely pay attention to our biases. Uh, as designers, as developers, as clients, when we're on when we're wearing the client hat, we should definitely pay extra attention to our biases, especially the confirmation bias, because we're always going to try and validate the things that we want to happen, and invalidate those that we don't want to happen. At the end of the day, we don't know what we don't know, and as a product focused designer or product focused developer for that matter, we should keep an open mind and always go back to the problem at hand. What are we solving for? Very important for a product focused designer is to use their team, to design with their team. um, we want to involve the team in the design process from the very beginning. uh, like they may help us in um, highlighting some of our biases, pointing out some of our blind spots, and really, like, they usually, people in our team have additional knowledge, additional information that we don't already have. uh, Also, very important when working with clients, especially, is to identify who the main stakeholder is. Uh, in product focused design, we don't want to do design by committee, right? We want to work with a person on the client side, either internally or externally, that can make the decisions about the product, that can either say yay or nay to what we're proposing, and then that can help us move forward. The opposite of this is, like I said, design by committee, when you have a bunch of people that get together in a room, or in a Zoom room for that matter, and it's one of the, like, you get into one of those long meetings that's never ending, and everybody has their own opinion, and it can take hours or even days or weeks to make a decision that's a decision about what you're going to do. So definitely we want to use our team, but definitely want to avoid design by committee. Just use the team's expertise, but as a designer, make sure you identify that main stakeholder and make sure that you're comfortable in making the right decisions for the product. And this takes us to the next principle, which is making sure we define what success looks like. We always want to start with a clear hypothesis. Make sure we know what we're expecting from our product. Make sure what we're expecting from our design, and what are the implications of that design. How is that design going to change behavior, and to what extent? Right? We want to quantify our hypothesis. We want to make sure that we put things in perspective. Uh, Second to last, product focused design is about doing the right amount of work, doing the right amount of design, and focusing on getting a working product in front of users. Very much like a product focused development. Uh, it's about the product. It's about making, like, providing value to your users. And if you over design, if you over engineer, you're always going to risk delaying that delivery. You're always uh, you might go into some other problems. There's this saying that if you're not embarrassed by the first version of your product, you've released too late. And this should be the driving force behind product focused design and product focused development. Just do that MVP, get things out there into the world, get your product in the hand of your users, and that product uh, that product can either be in when you're talking about design, that product can be prototypes, get the prototypes in front of your users, get like if it's about development, get an MVP in the hands of your users, and then take it from there. And get feedback early and often. Listen to your users. Make sure you take note of their pain points after you release something. Make sure you take note of what works and what doesn't, and go back to the drawing board. As I mentioned before, product focused design is both iterative and incremental. So always go back, always add to what you've done, and always create the next version. Now, I'm going to go a little bit into the product focused design process and how to get the most out of it. The main thing that as a product focused designer should be focusing on is really understanding the problem and really understanding the vision, the objectives, the scope, and the complexity of the project that they're working on. Who is it that you're solving for? Who are your users? Why would your product matter to them? Why does the world need a solution to this problem right now? And is there anything else out there that might be a solution to this problem? Also very important, like I said, usually when you're a designer or a developer, you're either working on an internal project or on a project. If you're in an agency like AE is, you may be working with external clients as well. So usually you have somebody that's the visionary, right? You have somebody that wants this product to be built, and you're there to facilitate that for them. It's very important to get in sync with your client's expectations, and really want to understand what their priorities actually are. Sometimes clients may say that they want an MVP, right? And when we think MVP, we think something basic that has some basic functionality that works. But people seem to have like very different definitions of what an MVP is. Some people think of an MVP as something that just works, and that's great. But that's not always the case. Some people want a certain level of detail to their MVP. They want it to look and feel in a certain way. They want it to do certain things. So it's very important to understand that. As a product focused designer, as a product manager, and also as a developer, never go to the next step until you really understand what the project is all about, what's the problem that you're trying to solve, and what are your clients, what are your visionaries' expectations. Like I said, this is top priority before designing anything, and I like to like this Yogi Berra quote that says, "If you don't know where you're going, you might wind up someplace else." It basically really puts into perspective this entire concept, right? If you don't know what your objectives are, if you don't know what you're building for, you might end up building something else. And for those of you who don't know, Yogi Berra is one of the most prolific baseball players here in the United States, and he had like some really quotes about life and about like just about life in general, not only about sports. So once you figure out at least like at a very high level what the main vision, the main objectives of the projects are, and what the expectations of the client are, it's time to continue your work and do the right thing at the right time. Contrary to what the image on my right hand side says, I'm a product designer. To save time, we just assume that I'm always right. There's a lot of work that goes into design, and it can take the form of different artifacts. We can either help in creating business requirements documents. We can put together competitor analysis, do feature breakdowns, user personas, jobs to be done, user experience mapping, user flow, sitemaps, wireframes, and so on and so forth. It really depends on the complexity of the project, whether or not we decide to do it, one or the other thing. It's also very important to use your time wisely and be usefully lazy. And this is actually a concept coined by AE Studios' very own COO, Greg Buckner. And you can read more about it at useful-laziness.com. But the main idea behind this is to find the most efficient way of doing things that's in line with your desired outcome. When doing anything, consider the end goal, right? And ask yourself, like, what's the appropriate level of detail that's required to accomplish that goal? Can I accomplish my goal with a quick stab at it, with low effort? Or do I need something that's incredibly thorough? Do I need to consider the pros and cons of each approach? When as a product designer, when deciding what artifacts to create, think of what's the best format for your stakeholders. Like, people are usually people are usually, in most cases, very visual, right? They want to see things, they want to touch things, they want to like interact with things. So it may be, in some cases, it may be worth like having a user flow put together, having some wireframes, maybe low fidelity, high fidelity, and then uh, facilitating the conversation using those artifacts. It's also very important to understand who's dictating the work, right? Is the client very hands-on? Is the product manager facilitating things? Is the work on my terms or their terms? Whenever the work is not on our terms, think about how you can make it be on your terms. Think about your stakeholders' goals and how you can satisfy those goals on your terms. Again, it's all about balancing and really using using your situational awareness to deliver the right thing at the right time to the right people. I really love this quote from Bill Gates. He used to say that I choose a lazy person to do a hard job because a lazy person will find an easy way to do it. I'm not saying that we should be lazy, but definitely leverage this and try to always find the best way of doing things. I know it's easier said than done, but it's more art than science. But once as a product designer, once you're able to do this, or even as a product developer, once you're able to do this and consider all the different aspects that go into product focused design or product focused development, you're going to be in a very, very good place. Now let's talk a little bit about evaluating project complexity. As a product focused designer, you want to use your own heuristics and of course your team's expertise. And this includes your tech lead, your product manager, other stakeholders, to really to really understand where your project fits in terms of complexity. This is usually done in the early stages, but it also applies to individual features as well, right? But when we're talking about projects as a whole, we may be dealing with high complexity projects, and these are projects that have a high degree of complexity. But these could be projects that have a high number of screens, complex functionality, a high number of user types and roles, and so on and so forth. We may also be dealing with the medium complexity projects, and This could be a project that has a feature set that you and the product team are familiar with, something that similar to something that you've worked on before, or it can be something like web or mobile apps with 3 to 5 user roles, or 10 to 20 screens. Uh, and yeah, this actually makes things a little bit easier as a for the product focused designer. But we may also be working on low complexity projects or features, right? These are those that have limited functionality, usually when we're talking about 1 or 2 user roles, limited number of screens, and so on and so forth. And each level of complexity requires a slightly different approach. uh, on high complexity projects, situational awareness is key, right? And this means really understand what are all the moving pieces, and how those parts go together into the project. What do they mean? How they may affect the project in the future? Like, we shouldn't only look at the current state of affairs, but also how is this project going to evolve in the future. Um, this is very important because some things may not necessarily be solved, or don't have necessarily to be solved using design, or not necessarily they don't necessarily have to be solved using visual design. Uh, and the better you're at this as a product designer, the better you'll be at focusing on building the right things. And the best way to create this situational awareness for yourself, or the best way to find out these things, is to simply ask plenty of questions. Ask all the right questions. You may ask, what are the right questions? Any question that you can think of. As a product designer, as a product developer, don't be afraid to ask questions. I personally like to believe that there are no stupid questions, unless those questions are meant to trick the person that is being asked. So yeah, go ahead, ask questions, evaluate the landscape, the nature of people that you're working with, especially on high complexity projects. So uh, sorry about that. My slides are going haywire. Um, so asking all of those questions is going to allow you to evaluate the client's vision, the objectives, all the expectations, understand what the project scope, understand your audience, and really come up with a list of desired outcomes. Once you get alignment on those outcomes on high complexity projects, you can go ahead and create artifacts such as a user experience map, and then armed with that, you can create a high level sitemap, high level user flows, and then go on and wireframe the entire user experience, ideally in a mobile first approach, because these days about 80% of users, believe it or not, are on mobile. So of course, there are certain projects where desktop is going to be the main medium, and those a lot of times can be high complexity projects, such as dashboards, or complex like data visualization projects. But again, most of the times people are going to be on mobile. So as a product focused designer, try and understand that, where are your users coming from, how are your users interacting with your product, and start with a ideally with a mobile first approach if that warrants it, or with a desktop first approach if you're designing a project that's mainly going to be used on desktop. uh, it's once you have wireframes, once you have a lo-fi prototype, and always start with lo-fi wireframes, create a lo-fi prototype, put that in front of your client, put that in front of users whenever you have the chance, and really get feedback and iterate on that, and create a medium fidelity version. Uh, do the same process again, put it in front of your client, put it in front of your users, put it in front of your team, and then create the high fidelity version of it. Uh, very important, use your team. Keep at least your tech lead as a product designer, as a product focused designer. Keep your at least your tech lead counterpart in the loop, because sometimes they can bring up some interesting input and how to can give you ways to simplify things. And if you're a developer, um, just if you feel that you're not being involved as much as you should, make sure you communicate that with your designer counterpart. At the end of the day, you're working towards the same goal. You're working towards creating a successful product, something that your client, your users, and the market can actually use, can actually get value from. um, and once you've gotten to a place that satisfies both user needs, business needs, and market needs, right? Once you have that balance, get it into start developing your product. Get your designs in the hands of your developers. Work with your product manager and create those user stories, and really, yeah, make things happen. Uh, we don't want to spend too much time in here. I know it sounds like a lot, but these things should actually happen pretty fast, right? Let's say I was saying in the beginning that a designer should work 1 or 2 sprints ahead of developers. Those sprints can be either a week or two, but definitely things have to move fast. Start with a hypothesis, make assumptions, and really make things happen. On medium complexity projects, things can go a little bit smoother. Uh, Sometimes you can start with a high level sitemap or user flow, create some low fidelity wireframes, even pen and paper, and then make some quick decisions, create a high fidelity version that makes sense, and get it into the hands of developers. When you're working on low complexity things, you may skip wireframing altogether. Or you should always have like a user flow that creates the direction for what you're working on, but you can usually do visual design straight away and start building things. uh, and let's see. So after you've evaluated the project complexity, after you understand what you need to do, uh, your main goal is to align your team around a single source of truth. Like I said, make that assumption, create that hypothesis, and figure out what you're trying to test in the first iteration, and then build towards that goal. Uh, you may have more than one, but usually don't try to chase too many rabbits, because then you're not going to catch any. Uh, so after the first iteration, what you want to do is iterate and improve. Work with your product manager and stakeholders to prioritize the right stuff to build. Get feedback from your users. Iterate and improve based on user feedback and business needs, and never forget that you're solving a problem. Um, so that should be like, if you only remember one thing, always remember that you're solving a problem, and you should always go back to that. Ask yourself, am I providing a real solution for this problem? Is my problem still a problem? And then take it from there. um, Design is about solving problems and getting things done. Basically, product focused design is about solving problems and getting things done, and so is product focused development. uh, it's about doing what works for you and your organization, and it's about iterating on that process. uh, there's no right or wrong way to do it, as long as you're solving real user problems, real business needs and market problems, and that you as long as you're contributing to getting a useful product in the hands of your users. And On that note, I'd like to thank all of you for joining, and I'd like to open it up for questions. Let me know if there's anything that I can answer for you.